Kimberly Fletcher is an unabashed, America-loving mom. She's an author, a columnist, and the president and founder of Moms for America. She is the wife of a retired Air Force officer and mother of 8 children. And she has made it her personal mission to educate and inspire the mothers of America to realize their immeasurable worth and the powerful influence that they can have on society simply by being who they are. Kimberly, her husband, and family live in Omaha, Nebraska.
I have to say it is an absolute honor to be here, but I think it is very unfair that I had to come up after that incredible song. It has become one of my favorites, and it does earn a standing ovation every single time I have seen it performed. There is a gentleman named Vaughn J. Featherstone who in the 1970s, he said, "Our concern isn't about the flames of freedom which burn brightly in our generation. The concern is that in the rising generation, the flame has never been kindled." This is something that I have kind of dedicated my life to help moms, as she said, realize their powerful influence, first in their homes, in their communities, and in our nation. Where does that begin? When I was in Hawaii, my husband was stationed there at Pearl Harbor for 3 years, and there was a place called the Bedouin Temple. It's a real Bedouin temple in Kailua. You don't have to go to Japan to see one, or China. You can see it right there. And they had this big gong. And so every time we brought somebody, we'd have to come because they had these black swans and koi and this big gong. And who doesn't love to gong a gong? Although I spent a lot of money on that gong because it's $1 every time you hit the gong. And I had 2 very precocious boys who loved to gong. So we went there a lot. So we'd probably been there at least a dozen times. When one time we were coming into the parking lot, and my daughter was 14 at the time in the back, she started yelling, "Mom, Mom, that sign says Gardens of America." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And I look in the window, and sure enough, there's this little wooden sign on the corner on a road that goes up to the left that we somehow never saw before. And I said, "Well, let's go see what's up there." So we did. We went up the road, and at the top of the hill was this huge gray rock monument, 20 feet high, with a big American flag on it, which immediately caught my attention. And when I went up there, I read the inscription, and this is what it said. "In response to the promise of liberty, opportunity, justice, and freedom of religion, we left our native lands which we loved so dearly, and coming from the farthest corners of the world, we arrived in America. We fished in her waters, farmed her fields, worked in her factories, sold her products, and realized that here in this beautiful land, we had fulfilled our hopes and dreams for ourselves and our children. Now united as one people, we work toward our goal as living as equal Americans. God bless America and the good people who made her strong." When I read this, I was overwhelmed, and I thought of all the people who'd come to the Pacific from all the different corners of the earth. And I thought of all the people who'd come to America, and I thought, you know what? This is amazing. And so I started to go on this search. Who put this here? When was it here? I just wanted the whole story behind it. And I hunted for weeks, and I couldn't find anything. And then the next time we were at the monument, I remember I put my hand on the rock, and suddenly it hit me. It's not about who, it's not about when, it's about why. And I remembered the story of Joshua crossing the river of Jordan on dry land, and how God told him to put 12 stones, 12 large rocks up on this hill, so that when your children come by and they say, "Why are those rocks there?" you can say, "It's because of the miracle. We want to remind you of the miracle." And I'm like, you know what? They have these monuments and memorials all over the country, hidden treasures that people don't even know exist, and why were they there? They were there because our founders wanted us to remember the miracle. The people who sacrificed everything, the framers of the Constitution, they wanted us to remember the miracle. There is a really powerful truth about stories. Harold Goddard said the destiny of the world is determined less by battles that are lost and won than by stories it loves and believes in. Our story is being changed, and they're trying to take it away from us. Let me tell you the power of a story. While we were in Hawaii, we had the opportunity to go to the Polynesian Cultural Center where they have all these different villages, and we went to the one on Hawaii, which I was never going to go to because we were in Hawaii, and I'm like, what do I need to know about Hawaii? I'm in Hawaii. But it was raining and they had a hut, so we went in. And luckily, it was one of those God moments that you don't even realize until afterwards. So while we were there, they started to tell us the story of the hula. Now, we all recognize the hula as the grass skirts. That's actually Tahiti. The hula was actually their language. It's how the people preserved their culture, their language, their history. And when the Christian missionaries came to Hawaii, the queen decided that it was a pagan ritual that needed to be outlawed. And she did. She made it illegal to perform the hula. All the schools were closed. People were penalized, put in prisons if they did the hula. And a few decades later, a new king monarch was on the throne, and he was the first one that ever left Hawaii, the first monarch that ever left Hawaii to go and tour the world. And he went to Europe. And while he was there, and he was seeing all of these incredible people who were performing this music, and it was so rich in their culture. And he's like, wow, we should do something like that. And he's like, wait a second, don't we have something unique that we do? So he goes back home, and he talks to his aides, and he's like, hey, what's that hula thing? Didn't we do that? What was that? And they're like, I don't know. Well, how do you do it? I don't know. So all his aides went out, and they started to look and try and find who knows the hula. And you know what they found? They found a nation of people who knew how to do the hula. Because for those decades that it was outlawed, mothers and grandmothers continued to teach their children in their homes, in their backyards, in private. They would not allow the government to take away their heritage. And when the king rose up and said, where's the hula and who knows how to do it, a nation of children rose up and said, we know because our mothers taught us. There is going to come a day when people will rise up and say, where is liberty? And how do we do it? And a nation of children will rise up and say, we know, because our mothers taught us. I truly believe that mothers are the last best hope of America. Alex de Tocqueville said, righteous women in their circle of influence can turn the world around. Together with our men and our sons, we can turn the world around, and it starts with the power of a story.